Hey there, Cheesemeisters, and welcome back to the Peach Pod. That would have been You've Got to Live and Learn by Joe Public. That's playing in the DJ booth when Nikki comes in and says, "This is the coolest place I've ever been. This tiny little box with Barry White or whatever's going on the DJ booth at West Bev." I am Jeff, and if you're implying that I'm sexist, you're way off base. Now go make me a sandwich. And joining me on the other end of the internet is my cuz-host.
I'm Leslie, and I can't stand another year of cafeteria food.
I don't blame you. But, all right.
You have money, you dipshit. You can afford to buy food.
We saw what happens when Dylan cooks for himself. Like, eat the cafeteria food. It is better than those nasty-ass char burgers that you made. They're just... Steve's right. They're becoming one with the grill.
I didn't even see the food that they try to make. But I really want to...
Charred.
I don't understand how you can spend this much money on food and then go, all right, now I need to learn how to cook. These kids are dumb.
Well, I mean, Dylan, he used to order room service. He's never needed to learn how to cook. Like we've got a pretty great frozen burrito in the freezer right now.
Open your mouth. Tell your girlfriend, I don't cook.
Yeah, I don't know. We should all just assume Dylan doesn't cook.
He doesn't do anything except cause drama.
Well, that's very... Hey, Dylan, perpetual shit stirrer. This week, Cheesemeisters, we are talking about Season 3, Episode 7, Song of Myself, or A Song of Myself. There are any number of songs of any number of selves. This was Season 3, Episode 7, as I say, original air date September 9th, 1992. Back to school, baby!
Hell yeah.
Are you excited to be back in the halls of West Beverly?
I am, especially because the music they were playing when they showed the empty school was like, I don't know, it had like this light, epic feel, or like we're about to go on a big adventure together, the final year.
Yeah, final year. Yeah, I like being back in school. I love the summer. Those summer episodes are fun. Yeah. But like the interesting thing that the summer episodes do is they give you like 2 season premieres.
Yeah.
Right? Like you get a season premiere, like, oh, it's Season 3, here we go, we're on the beach, yeah. And then back to school is like a whole different premiere. It's like, yeah, this is the real shit. Summer is summer. Anything that happens near Henry, I don't know, does it even count anymore?
Summer is Vegas.
Yeah, except for not really, because it keeps on coming.
That's true.
They think it's Vegas. And then Nikki Witt shows up to be your freshman buddy. Although she's not a freshman, she's a transfer student. So not sure if she's a sophomore or a junior. But she's not a freshman, we know that.
Yeah.
So we are introduced to some new friends and some new teachers and some old friends and some relatives of some old friends, and we're reminded that Scott died, which you had forgotten apparently. I'm
ashamed. I was like,
I know,
Scott Scanlon. Why does that sound familiar? Oh, Scott! Oh,
boom, 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 Scott. Yeah. Yep. Twirling my 6-shooter. Check it out, David. It's my birthday. Good shot.
So, oh God, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so here's what happens in this episode. We start school up again. We have freshman buddies now. Donna gets Nikki, so there's some drama. Brenda gets Sue Scanlon, who comes to school dressed like she's going to church and comes out of the bathroom dressed like she's going to a rave and smoking a cigarette like she's never smoked a cigarette before.
Oh, yeah.
Do you notice how awkward the way she holds it? Yeah, I'm smoking the cigarette.
It worked for the character, though.
Does it? I mean, because I guess if she's a poser, like if she's not really this
It,
bad girl,
I think it works because we don't want her to look at home, even though,
right?
you know, I think if you're really wanting to like make that transfer of character and such, then like you're really going to practice. But again, I think she's just trying to have a break. But yeah, I and all that to say, it works that she's not good at smoking.
Yeah. Okay, and so then Steve gets Herbert, and then we get Gil Myers coming in, just fucking shit up in the blaze. So we have new people. We have Kelly continuing to not be so happy. She finds herself in all of her classes basically with Dylan and Brenda until she changes her schedule because this is not good for her. This is not a healthy environment for her.
No.
And so she is removing the superfluous Kelly from the situation. And I think that's a good idea. Gil tries to give the editor-in-chief job to Brandon and take it away from Andrea until Andrea calls him on his bullshit. And now they're co-editors-in-chief. And
that's fair.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I know.
And then Donna finds out from Nikki about the smooching. That's all we do. And then decides to get even with David. And I don't know, when girls high five on this show, it always looks awkward to me. Like they've never they high five like Sue Scanlon smokes a cigarette. It's just real weird looking. Like, but they high five.
I'm coming up with a list of things actors struggle with: high fiving, getting dressed, and then coming out of a kiss.
Okay, and add drink an empty cup of coffee.
Oh yes.
You know, like when there's clearly no liquid in the coffee and the cup just doesn't look right. It looks too light. Like there's not enough. Yeah, they move their hand just a little too fast for how you would. Yeah, it's tough. All right. So here's what I want to find out from you. I'm going to take these 4 new characters. We've got Sue. We've got Herbert Hubert. We've got Gil. And we've got Nikki. I would like you to tell me what storyline we're going to get for each of these characters. Broad strokes. Okay. because it's obvious now to me watching TV shows, and as we talk about this one, that when a new character is introduced, it's for the purpose of a story arc. There's going to be some kind of story that comes around with these characters, and some characters come to stay and some come to do their bit and go. Some ice skate for an episode and piss off. You know, some come and are like racist for 3 weeks straight, or not even, but like they're there and then they're racist and then they're gone. So I know that like when Brooke showed up, you weren't like, well, this is going to end up in some racism.
Nope, did not see that coming.
So I think it's impossible to predict, but I like to play the game of where do you think this is going? So let's start with the one that I think there's zero chance you guess. Why is Herbert there? What's going on with Herbert?
To teach Steve about racism. To teach Steve about affirmative action.
Okay.
And, to try and make Steve less racist, probably. To put all that work on this poor kid who's just trying to exist in school.
I'm not sure Herbert made it out of the quad. Like that whole first week of school, Herbert's just wandering around the quad looking for like the computer lab or the like wherever because we never see him anywhere else, but just like, hey Steve, buddy, they won't take my sir. Tony Miller's back, being a little bit of a dick in the quad. Nice. But it is fun to see. It's fun to see Tony Miller come back. Okay, so you think Herbert's there to teach Steve a lesson about racism? That is a fair guess. Why is Nikki there? What's going to happen with Nikki?
I did see a photo that it looks like she's gonna date Brandon. So
Okay.
once again, that's gonna cause some problems because like even though David loves Donna, I
Mhm.
mean, he's not gonna want to relinquish
Mm,
the listen, everyone likes to be adored. Everyone likes to be
sure.
pursued to some
Hmm.
extent. And I think David's gonna miss that attention from Nikki. And Nikki was doing all the
Right.
like I hate the direction they gave her. I think she is a much better actress than that. But
Yeah.
anytime they said, okay, when Brandon walks off, you need to just be like,
Going a bit. Yeah.
and she did. And I said, you know what? You earned that paycheck. And I hope they looked at that later and said, well, that looks really dumb. That was stupid of us. They
Here's
didn't.
the thing. Yeah, like I don't think there's anything in my life that comes to the level of 60-year-old Paul Newman. But I will say that I I'm in love with Nikki from Jump Street. Like she's so fucking cute. She's exactly my type. Like I love her smile. I love just like the way that her face kind of lights up. I love her hair. I love everything about her. She is like exactly
No,
like
she's
what yeah, like
adorable. And
I I always wanted that person to show up at school and bump into me 7 times. You know?
okay, that first bump alone, I was like, and this is why you have a choreographer, because Jason Priestley just like slammed his arm into her abdomen, and I thought,
Oh,
Jesus, Jason.
you know what? In his defense, he's a hockey player. Like you check people into the boards. That's how you make contact like that. What else? I mean, are you just
Okay,
going to let him keep the puck?
that's not how you get a girlfriend. But to
I don't
answer
know.
what she's here for,
Yeah.
it's it's just to stir up again. They need something to break up this friend group in the senior
Uh,
like, and I'm sure it's going to happen multiple times. Again, hints I've seen, but I think it definitely
mhm.
has to happen the senior year because that's when it would be the most devastating. You know,
Gotcha. Hmm.
yes, you're excited to get out of high school, but at the same time, you're looking around at your friends and going, oh no, I have,
Right.
this has been my family for 4 years, maybe
Hmm.
longer, depending on what your school district is like and if
Right.
you haven't moved. But like, that's daunting and that's
Mhm.
terrifying. So, and some of that will play into why maybe some relationships get broken apart for a minute because sometimes when the end is near, people want to fight and I don't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you start to pull apart to protect yourself from the fact that you're going to get pulled apart.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think's going on with Sue Scanlon?
She is this semester's uh be aware of mental illness or be
Mm,
not even mental illness, but just be aware of like trauma, what that does to a person, how people respond to it. Last season we had Emily Valentine. I
mm-hmm.
think this season, I don't know if we'll get her for long, because this girl's gonna go on to be on the nanny. Um, she's getting work. She's gonna be busy. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, I just don't see that lasting very long
Mm,
because it's the 90s and they only know so much and people are still sensitive about like, but if I go to a shrink it means I'm crazy.
right.
you know um people are almost as afraid of being labeled as crazy as the men in the show are of being labeled sexist.
That's very true. Speaking of that, what's going on with Gil? Why is Gil there?
Because the writers long ago said there will be a viewer of this show in 30 years who hates Chris Suter so much we have to create another character to stir up the acid in her digestive tract so much.
Yeah, and give him a beard.
Oh my god, give him a beard, give him like unbutton just enough shirt to be appropriate for school and then also doing the Riker, um
Yeah,
which in case you don't know is leg over, he did all the douchey guy seating things, and then
yeah.
flipping the chair around, like, ugh, oh God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Um, I mentioned this to you when you started watching it, but one thing I'd like you to pay attention to, and I'd like everybody to pay attention to this in case you haven't watched this show 50 times and become focused on minutia like I have. Watch the way he acts with his hands. He's always gesticulating a little towards people in weird kind of his hands, it always feels like he doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing with them. And so he's constantly they're just doing stuff all the time, these hands. And so that's I don't think he was brought on the show to like lay the groundwork for George Costanza's hand modeling career,
Yes.
but those hands, they're involved. They're fucking involved.
I'd like to think that he's there to be an example to these boys that, like,
Mm.
oh hey, you're not as pro woman as you think you are, and this
Uh-huh.
and the 90s were not as, you know, pro feminism
Mm-hmm.
as, I don't think anyone's actually thinking that, to be honest, but you know, the 90s was and wasn't that long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it's crazy sometimes. I mean, when I watch Dawson's Creek and I look at and Friends and see like the homophobia there, and yet they're having
Mm-hmm.
characters pop up, but it's like a very, what do I want to say? It's like a kosher gay character that they're putting on. It's a
Right. It's okay.
it's
Yeah, yeah, sure.
like, this is a gay character you all can be okay with, and it's like, okay, but, and again, they're not a monolith, so why are you acting like this is, anyway. um
Mm-hmm.
Same thing they do with any character of color that they put on, or a woman in a lead, like, you know, the 90s was not as progressive as we thought it was. It might have been in some ways, and for that time for sure, but like,
Yeah.
it was and wasn't that long ago, and it's crazy to me, the things that
Yeah.
I'm still learning about what was going on in the first 10 years
Yeah.
of my life.
Yep. I mean, I think that's why Gil's in this episode. Like, I'm not saying anything about where his storyline goes and why he's here long term, but I think this episode in particular was the point of Gil is showing that you might think this about yourself, but look at the way you act.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all, like, I've read the research, I understand. I don't think, like, I'm not doing that consciously, but he's doing it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think this episode is really about is um the divide between our words and our actions.
Mm.
Like Gil comes to this from the poetry, from the Walt Whitman, from the Song of Myself, from the "It's as good to be a woman as to be a man" or whatever the fuck. Um, he's he's that guy who was inspired by an English teacher in high school, which I think is like an avatar for all writers. Like you were inspired by a English teacher, and so you're writing this TV show, and you're like, I'm going to talk about how inspiring teachers can be. And this
Mm-hmm.
one gave me Walt Whitman when I was in freshman year, and I understand myself. Um, and which is like a real thing, and that's fine. And like it ends up getting stuck in TV shows all the time because guess who's making TV shows? Writers. So like not everyone was inspired by the poetry that their junior year lit teacher assigned to them. Like this just didn't happen for everybody, and that's fine.
To be honest, we didn't really read a lot of poetry at my high school.
Yeah.
I think that was like one of those things that got etched out a bit more as time went on. Like, we don't have time to dissect poetry. We only have time for of mice and men.
Yeah. We were kind of the same way. We didn't get a lot of poetry. And I'm fine with that. Like
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, I've read some things. I'm like, oh, that's, I like that, or I see what that is, or whatever. But it's just not my thing, and that's fine. But it was Gil's thing in Word,
Yeah.
but he's and I think that that's what we want to see. Like we want to see someone who thinks they're doing the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
who just isn't. And like, he's well intentioned, he thinks, from his point of view, he's trying to encourage this kid who is trying to quit the paper.
Mm-hmm.
He's not seeing it for the way Andrea sees it, or the way that it is, which is, you're coming in, you're taking something away from this girl who's worked at it all of this time and giving it to this guy to like convince him to give a shit. Like, that's really crappy. But what he thinks he is someone who's very supportive of his female students. And you're way off base if you think I'm sexist. But his actions are ill-informed by the words he's read.
Yeah.
And so what matters more there? His actions to me. They matter way more than the words he says.
And that goes in line very much with right now, where you can read all the material that you want to be a better person. You still have to put it into action,
Right.
At least in your words, like you at least need to speak it. Like,
right.
Just because.
But,
yeah.
But I mean, if you speak it, like, does it matter? Because like, if I ran, it could, but if I run over your dog, does it matter to you what I say? No. What matters is I killed your dog.
I'm talking about in moments of being an empathetic human being, like,
sure.
Of course, there's not going to be the perfect thing for a white person to say to a person of color, but maybe it's that you just listen, maybe it's not in what you say. It's the fact that you just listen.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Listening is an action.
Okay. That's fair. I see.
Right? Like, I'm doing something. I'm listening. I'm here. I showed up to help.
Mm-hmm.
I stood up when someone was being discriminated against. I did a thing. I hired this person because they were the right person for the job.
Yeah.
And like, whatever. Like, I acted. I didn't just say.
I think what I mean too is, by speaking, is that it matters what you say to other people who have a similar experience to you, who may say dumber shit and have that same thinking of like, are you calling me racist? Are you calling me sexist? And it's like, no, but like, here's what you said. Like, again, like
right.
I mentioned last week, is it Brandon's job to educate Becky with the bad hair? No. And yet it also kind of is. Like, if you have the energy to do that, if you want to take that on, great, you should, because you clearly know a bit more and maybe you can help her understand it.
Right.
But at the end of the day too, like, you need to protect yourself. And again, maybe they're too far gone.
Well, yeah. I mean, case by case, right?
Exactly.
But like, other examples of words versus deeds in this episode, though, are Andrea's constantly saying this is okay with her, but her actions say something else entirely. Like, her reactions. Why. I do too, but which of those things is true? Her actions are the true thing.
Yeah.
David keeps saying he's going to tell Donna, but he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so what matters is what he did, not what he said about what he did or what he was going to do. And Brandon, like, giving the slightest amount of pushback. Are you sure she's okay with this? And they're just fucking doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So like, I think that there's a little bit of that going on in this episode, which is like, I hear you. I hear your Walt Whitman. I hear your platitudes. I hear your protestations. What I believe is what you do. And, like, we're not like, I'm not going to put my thumb on the scale of worst person of the episode, because like, it could legit be any of the dudes in this episode, except for Herbert. God bless Herbert. But like, if Gil gets worst person of the episode, it's for what he did, not for what he said.
Fair.
You know, like it's his actions that put him on the list.
Both outraged me though, so
Sure. Sure.
yeah, both
Yeah.
outraged me. Um, and maybe his words outraged me because of the actions behind it. You know,
Right.
and I want to point out too. Granted, I'll acknowledge I have not read that whole poem.
I tried. It's long.
I could care less about Walt Whitman. Sorry,
Right.
he will be fine without me in his fan base. But
Yeah.
just because a male poet wrote like "It is as good to be a woman as a man" or something like that, it could easily also be taken as he's trying to tell the women to shut up and stop worrying about being equal to men. Like your lives are just as good as the men's. Like what
Right.
do you need to vote? Why do you need rights to property? Why do you need a
Right.
credit card that doesn't exist yet? Like
Right. Yeah.
that's how I heard it the second time around. Like
Sure. I mean, I never even got to that part of the poem. That's how long that poem is. There's like I got to like the 15th stanza or whatever, and I'm like, I'm good. I get it. I get the general gist of this poem, but boy, you're a wordy motherfucker, Walt Whitman.
give me, yeah, I'll just say it. If I'm gonna, if I poetry is not my go-to either, but it's something that I
Mm-hmm.
keep trying because it's something that like I'll try to write poetry on the train all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if it's not set to music, then I just want to read it, poetry by women, you know? And I love the simple little stuff like but like Rupi Kaur. People can laugh at that all they want, but like it works for me. It works for
Mm-hmm.
someone. Like
Yeah, I like it. I don't know who that is, but good for you. Um, yeah, it's a poet. I wouldn't.
they're
Um,
short, simple poems, but they get to the heart of it without going on for pages and pages.
gotcha. I like dirty limericks and haikus. That's what I like.
Of course you do.
That's right. Easily digestible and often about a boner.
There you
So
go.
that's what I like. All right, what do you think this episode is really about?
Let me just go through it again. Yeah, I'm gonna be that person this episode. I think this episode is about how these men think they respect women because they're doing the least. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not abusing a woman, ergo, I'm a nice guy. Like these
Right,
guys are like definition of the I'm a nice guy. You know, like,
right,
hey, I'm taking you out. I'm giving you attention. I'm a nice guy. Hey, I'm not
right,
calling you evil shit or hitting you or like doing awful things to you. I'm a nice
right,
guy. Um
right.
again, the least. Like, oh, I've read Walt Whitman and he said that it is as good to be a woman as it is a man. I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
Stop it. You all are not nice guys. Like again, the bar is so low.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just want you to listen, you know, maybe do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I go back to like two guy friends at one point asking me, well, how can like what can I do to be a feminist or you know, and it's just like I don't know, just listen. But also
Right.
like I don't like that question. Um
Yeah.
it's again like asking how to be a better human. Like it's just it's not fair to put that question on other people, on the
Right.
people you're wanting to help. Well, how can I help you? Okay, well, it's a lot more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
Like, don't do this microaggressive bullshit. Don't reward um a male student because he needs motivation,
Mm-hmm.
take away opportunities for me. Like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that happened like to me, to
Sure.
other women in my grade,
Mm-hmm.
like middle school and high school. I remember like it took me so long to get a stupid like school certificate whatever because they kept wanting to motivate these male students who could not care less about school. If it worked, fine, but it made me feel like shit. It made me
Yeah.
feel like nothing I did was ever going to be enough. And guess what? I still have that feeling.
Yeah.
Like,
It reminds me of uh there was a teacher of mine from high school who he had to put up a GoFundMe because some bad shit happened.
oof.
Um and so I was like, you know, I donated and whatever, and it came back up again, and people were talking about it, and he's like, oh, he still needs help with this because it's like fixing this thing is more whatever than was anticipated, and it's he just needs more help, whatever. And I was like, well, we should help this guy out, whatever. And I was like mentioning this to like a friend of mine from high school who was a girl, and she was like, fucking karma. And I'm like, really? You don't like him? And I was like, I never had any problem with him. Oh, that's right, I'm a guy. Like, because I remember in the back of my head this thing from high school where all of the girls hated his class because he never called on them. Like, I just remember that was true. Like, that's right. My memory of him is different. It's not that because I didn't experience that. But as soon as she was like, fuck him, karma, I'm like, oh, right. You don't like him, and I understand why.
My senior year class of like theater students,
Mm-hmm.
most of us were girls. And the end of junior year, our theater teacher was talking to us like, okay, what would we like to do next year? And we thought, cool. Like, there aren't a lot of all female shows that we're aware of, but like, or that will get an audience, but let's think of something cool. We thought it was going to be our year. And then one stereotypically nice looking leading guy shows
Mm-hmm.
that he can sing, and the whole year gets to revolve around him.
Ugh, yeah.
It's despicable.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that sucks.
it does.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all I'll say. It sucks. It's stupid. Don't do
yeah.
it.
I feel like related to all of that, one of the things going on in this episode that it's maybe really about is that guys are jerks, but we keep saying what nice guys they are. like, like, like Nikki is like, don't be mad at David. He's a great guy.
Because we're uncomfortable with calling people on their bullshit. We're
Right.
uncomfortable. And I mean, you see this nowadays too. When a guy gets called out, what happens? We look to the women closest to him and go, well, are you going to leave him?
Right.
Expect that of people. Like, you know, let people decide for themselves. Like, these guys still deserve the friendships, you know?
Right.
It would be, they might not deserve these women in their lives, but also, like, I guarantee you these women are really tired. Like, we saw more of the women interacting with each other this week, probably because
Mm-hmm.
they're tired of their bullshit.
Well, yeah, but as you say, this episode does not pass the Bechdel test. They're just
No,
constantly talking about the guys. And like Donna is like, Kelly, Brenda is like, Kelly, we're gonna find you a guy as great as Dylan. Meanwhile, Dylan was cheating on you all summer long. His mom's earrings in the couch, not Iris's earrings.
I don't. Well,
I don't. Why are earrings? Did you ever watch Lost?
I did.
Not Iris's earring. That's what that is.
Oh, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think some of these guys mean better than others, but they all need a lot of work. Like,
Mhm.
Myers, he is a sexist, condescending jerk. He needs
Mhm.
to do better, especially
Yeah.
working as a teacher. And I'm very
Yep.
scared for what could happen with him still in that school.
Right.
David is immature and thinks lying would be easier than just talking about it. You know,
Mhm.
part of learning about relationships.
Mhm.
Brandon and Steve, it's their usual shit. Like, they like, need I say more? You know?
Yeah.
And then Dylan is awful because he thinks he can have both slices of cake.
Yeah. Yeah. He wants to take those cakes and go like this.
I know. And like, he's
Yep.
being so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
stupid.
he's a great guy. We'll get you
No.
a guy just as good as him.
you know,
Yeah.
again, you can be sexist
Mm-hmm.
and still be nice to your partner.
Right. Sure.
Like, I know, again, we all want humans want things to be black and white. You and I both know this. I think many other
Mhm.
people know this. Things are a
But
lot
it's
more,
all
yeah, a lot more gray. Well, okay, mine's not showing right now, but it's there.
so very gray.
I have one
Yeah.
white eyebrow.
I like it.
It's a lot more gray
Yeah.
and that makes us all uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at the end of the day, that's just how it is. And if we can learn to like find comfort in that discomfort, i.e. talking and communicating,
Yeah.
again, there's not going to be a clear-cut answer for how to be, a less shitty human being. It's called doing the
Right.
work. It's called
Yeah.
listening to other people.
Yep. Um, I would say the flip side of this episode being about how guys are jerks and but we still tell them how great they are, is sisters are doing it for themselves in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Like Donna and Nikki come together to, I don't
Get
know.
even.
Yeah, well, yeah, to like, what's that? Is it Dateline NBC where like the guy comes in and catches the pedos? Like, yeah, that's what, like, they set up the sting and they come in on David. He's like, well, I didn't do anything this time.
And it's the most innocent of stings. It's delightful.
It is. Yeah. But that's the girls going like, we're going to solve this problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Kelly looks at her situation and says, I'm not trying to make this good for the three of us. I'm trying to make this good for me. I'm going to change my classes. Yeah. And takes it into her own hands to solve this problem for herself. And she also, like, you see her removing herself from situations that are making her uncomfortable because she's taking care of her own self, which is great. Sue is trying to assert who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't even know who she is, which is why you get this very confused thing that she's like, she's not the little Susie Sunshine from the beginning and the end of the school day, but she's really not this kid who doesn't know how to smoke either. Like, yeah. It's a costume she's putting on, but she's trying. Like, she's trying to get out of the thing that is so hard for her right now, which is, have you been in my house? It's fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a nasty environment for me to be in since Scott shot himself in my dad's study on his birthday with my other siblings in the other room. Like, this is a bad place. It's not healthy.
And it already was a fraught place before Scott killed himself.
Right, because we met Scott's mom, and she's a nut job. Like, she's your bestest friend in the whole wide world. David, you planned this party in 48 hours. Get all that was your job, David. Well, I guess, gosh. And I'm not sure this is a spoiler, but we're not done with her.
You've hinted it.
Yeah, we're gonna get some more of her, and she's gonna not be better.
Rather deal with her than Myers any day.
Yeah, you're gonna get both of them this year.
I'll take mommy problems over guy problems any day.
All right, well, we're gonna see how that one holds up.
All
right. Here's what else I think this episode might be about. Teamwork makes the dream work. Right? Like, Dylan can't host a barbecue without Brenda's help. Now he still can't cook a hamburger. Jim can't light a grill without Dylan's help. Donna and Nikki team up, come together to take out the scourge that is David's libido. And making Brandon and Andrea co-editors of The Blaze. Which, to be honest, if they hadn't gone through all of the Gil Myers of it all, I think is kind of a great way to change things up for this season. Sure. Like the talk Brandon gives to Andrea, where he's like, "I can't do this without you. Let's be partners." Is like, if they had just started from there and avoided the sexism Gil, then it would have like I think it's a good place to end up. I think it's a rough road to get there.
Maybe it
But I
gives her,
like them
and
that way.
I think it gives her a chance to have more of a life outside of
Mm-hmm.
school,
Mm-hmm.
because she really, listen, I worked hard in school too. I was never up until 2 a.m. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Like,
Right. Putting
never,
together a cost saving analysis.
not even for theater stuff. Like, no way.
Right. Yeah.
So go have a life. Go have fun.
Mhm.
Brandon, be better.
Yeah. Step up a little bit. Yeah. Brandon could use a kick in the pants. Like when he wants to do nothing. But he can do more. He's capable of more than what he's doing.
Yeah.
And just changing up their dynamic, could be good. And I think you want to see people grow,
Yeah.
and for Brandon, stepping into that leadership role is growth, even though he's like constantly trying to fix everything. Like putting him actually in charge of something where he has responsibilities is probably good. And getting Andrea to share, is good for her.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a well, you need to learn to be a team player, Missy. But just any place where you have a blind spot, it's good to sort of work into that blind spot. Like, if you're a bad free throw shooter, you practice your free throws in practice.
Yeah.
In the game, try not to take so many free throws because you still suck. But at practice, work on the thing you're bad at.
Mm-hmm.
So she should work on things where she has, need of growth, and that is certainly something I think that she could do. Now forcing it on her, and telling each other it's for her own good, it's kind of shitty. I don't enjoy that so much. But I think a world where they're co-editors, where they're teammates, I think is great.
Yeah.
Great. And we chatted about this a little bit. I think David and Kelly as siblings, like I like that relationship.
Yeah.
Sitting on the bed talking it out. I like that relationship. And we're gonna be in Kelly's bedroom a lot this year, I think, because they built that set.
They worked very hard.
That set, and they keep using it. They keep having every conversation at Kelly's house takes place in that bedroom. And Dylan's, we got an outdoor set for Dylan now. We don't just have the living room and the kitchen, the breakfast nook. We also have the shitty grill patio.
I was gonna say it was a sad patio. I'm pretty sure my backyard in New York looks better than that.
It might be bigger too.
It absolutely is, actually.
Yeah. He doesn't have much going on in that backyard. But yeah, I just I think I was talking about teamwork, and I don't know why we're talking about Dylan's house because I lost my train of thought there. But
well, Brendan and Dylan, team up to cook, so
they do. You can't
talk about set pieces. That's why.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because Kelly and David are partners. Yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of, all of the guys are terrible. All the girls are really trying. It's better when they work together.
Yeah.
It's sort of where we ended up with this episode. Anything else that it's really about?
No, not that I can think of.
Alrighty. So what did this make you nostalgic for?
It made me nostalgic for my freshman year in high school. I was, new kid all around, like new to high school, obviously, new to the new school district. And there was one of the senior guys in theater I developed a huge crush on.
Sure.
And I would always see him walking down the hall, but he'd have his arm around his girlfriend and then they'd be kissing. And I was like, that's such coordination.
How do you walk and kiss at the same time?
I know. I was so impressed. And then...
Yeah. You know what? In retrospect, I'm impressed too.
Listen, it's impressive. As an intimacy
Yeah.
choreographer, I haven't had to do that yet. So, yeah, it's impressive. You know,
As a person walking down the street, I think I would be like, no, one of us is going to trip. Like, there's 100% one of us is falling over. And then they're going to take the other one down with them, and it's going to be. And I'm almost 50. I'm going to break it up something. Do that.
yeah.
I don't want to do that. So you should be impressed by that.
Yeah, and at the end of I think the spring musical, I got my mom took a photo of me with him, and he put his hand around my waist, and he said my name, and it was the best day of my life. And I was
I
like,
like it. Yep. You were like Nikki when Brandon runs into her.
no, for real. Like I wanted to make fun of her choice, and I thought, oh, that was definitely me. Anytime I saw
Yeah.
him, I'm not going to say his name, but yeah, that guy.
Punky McMasters. Nice.
Theater star.
I think this makes me nostalgic for two things, kind of, and neither of them are all that great. The first is coming into a new role where you're in charge, and this is not like great nostalgia, but this is like advice for Gil. Slow down, dude. Like, the worst thing you can do if you're hired to like lead a new thing is to come in and just change everything, because you completely destabilize all of the people who have been there, and you put them in their own head, like Andrea, like, well, we won the Quill and Scroll Award. By the way, shouts to the Quill and Scroll Award. For our work last year. Like, she gets real defensive because he's like, we should just change the layout of the paper because it could be better. And like, Gil is well intentioned there. Like, his idea is, let's come in and make this really good thing even better.
Mm-hmm.
But when you spend your first meeting telling people how you're like, I'm here now and it's going to be better, like, fucker, like, how about come in, ask questions, learn the place that you're at, and what the people there think might need to be fixed, as opposed to just coming and telling them about it. Don't make any big changes for a little while. But Gil's like, first meeting, guess what we're doing? Everything's different. Change the layout. Put him in charge. On your quits. This girl does that. Like, calm down, Gil. Fuck.
And also, don't try to be their friend.
Well, there's that too.
Straight out the gate, but like,
right.
Like, I'm cool. I'm not a regular teacher. I'm a cool teacher.
That's right.
And, like,
I mean, I was the original couch potato.
Stop it. Like, kids are sensitive to that, and they're not impressed. So, stop it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't come off as true. So, like, that's not really something, because that's hard to do. Like, to come in and be a new person in charge of things and and handle it perfectly. But like, Gil just slammed his dick in the car door here.
I swear, they had him and Brandon in the same tight jeans, and I was uncomfortable. I was like, no, you don't need to be wearing... Is it Friday already? Stop that.
The other thing this made me nostalgic for was doing a bad job manning the grill. I was at we were having a grill out at Adam's place. This was, I don't know, 25 years ago. And I was put in charge of manning the grill while things were going on. And, the coal, like, we had started the fire and we were waiting for the coals to get white. And I'm checking the grill, whatever. But, looking at it, coming inside, hanging out, coming outside, checking out. And at one point, Adam's like, how's it coming? I'm like, it's going okay. I think it should be ready pretty soon. He walked outside and the entire thing was on flames. Like, the whole grill was on fire. Like, there were like 6-foot flames shooting up into the air. I was like, that was on me. I did a I did a bad job um, of watching the fire there, but I do kind of feel um, like I I'm not sure how much better a job I could have done. Like I was like Millhouse when Bart hired him to be the night watchman for the factory he bought,
Oh Lord.
and Bart shows up the next day and the factory has fallen down,
Oh.
and he says, "Millhouse, what happened? I thought you were supposed to be watching." And he says, "I was watching. First, I watched it start to fall over, and then I watched it fall over." And that's what I would have been with this fire. I would have been like, I was watching, I watched it catch fire, and then I watched it really catch fire. Like, I don't know what I would have been able to do to stop that. But I did a really bad job of manning the grill that time.
Continuing on the theme of sexism, I've never learned how to grill, and I know it's on me now, but like it would have been nice to learn how.
Yep. You when you're doing charcoal, you make like a pyramid
Hmm.
of the briquettes, and you give it a little lighter fluid. I'm telling you this right now, and I'm not a master at this at all, but good charcoal briquettes really make a difference as
I
opposed to
believe it.
shitty ones.
I believe it.
Like if you get the good ones like the Kingsfords or whatever, like you can one match it and it'll catch and it'll burn and it'll be okay. But you pyramid it, and then lighter fluid if you need it, match in there, try to do the match like towards the bottom, get
Okay.
it to sort of go up, and then it just takes a while, like because it's not hot until the coals are white.
Okay.
Like that's when it's hot enough to cook at. And so when most of the coals are white, and there can still be some black in there, but then you spread them out. Don't use your hands. Because they're hot.
Thanks.
And then yeah, and now you got something you can cook on.
Oh, okay.
So
That's a very helpful start.
yeah, start with a pyramid. Yeah, that's what I recommend. Um, all right, who is your Steve Sanders Memorial worst person of the episode?
All of the men. Except Herbert, you're still cool. But yeah, they
He's
all
not
made
cool. He said, "Sir."
they all made me mad.
They were terrible.
They all
Yeah.
made my blood pressure rise.
Yeah, Gil sucks.
I've been
But yeah, all the
sweating this
boys.
episode from talking about it. Like
And not because you're like, oh, Gil's beard. um, yeah, they all suck. Like all of the guys in this episode, sans Herbert, are awful. Steve is just like, I'm only doing this because I need to put something on my college applications that I did anything at all, like anything. So he's set up to not be helpful for Herbert. Like,
yes.
and he saves him from getting bullied for like 35 seconds, and maybe gets him out of the quad. Like maybe Herbert got to leave the quad. So maybe Steve is the nicest of the guys in this episode, which is rare, even though Steve sucks. For me, it's Gil though, because
That's fair.
He just like he's the most actively harmful.
Yes.
Like Brandon's like a dope in this episode, but he's not ill-intentioned.
Okay.
Like he sees every step along the way why this isn't awesome, but he goes along with it, which doesn't make him great, but it's like this is how Brandon ends up like seeming like the nice guy.
Yeah.
Is like he's constantly in the wrong, but it's like because the situation was thrust upon him, he handled it poorly.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like the out he gets a lot of times, and then he learns and breaks up with the racist or whatever. So, and I think Dylan is I think what we've got right now is a default level of crumminess from Dylan.
Okay.
Like he's consistently not great because he did this thing and is still hiding it. and he hasn't done anything worse or anything to make it better. He's just he's levelly terrible right now. And so I think it's hard to like give him the award this week because he's no worse this week than he was last week. He's still just like base level shitbag.
I also felt like people were gonna automatically be like, "Oh, it will definitely be Gil Myers for her." Like, I'm gonna shake things up and blame all the dudes. But yeah,
There you know, I like it. I like it.
Gil is. I agree with you on all accounts, like where he is compared to the other dudes.
Yeah. So, and also he's a grown up. He should know better.
Yep.
Now he's probably
26.
I was going to say the character's probably 25, 26.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know much, but he knows more. Should anyway. All right. Anything else for this episode? Anything else for these terrible boys and these teamwork girls?
I don't think so.
Alrighty.
Shout out to Andrea, standing up for herself. That was amazing.
Yeah, getting her name back on the masthead before even the first issue goes out.
Especially the moment when Brandon throws out that, like, it's not my fault, I'm too egotistical to handle my own shit, and she just does this hand thing, like...
Yep. I want to crush your face right now. I'm going to leave.
Like, she was summoning the power of every witch burned in Salem. I was like, nope, not worth using it on you.
Yeah, you're not the real problem here. Like, that was shitty, but I got to go burn Gil down first, and then I'll come back for you, motherfucker.
I'm with you, Andrea. Oh, and of course, him mispronouncing her name twice.
He got it right like half the time and got it wrong half the time. And like when people do that it almost feels worse.
Yeah.
Like you know what it is, and you did it wrong on purpose, Kamala.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yep, I'm saying. But I think we did it.
We did.
All right.
Okay.
So join us here again next week, Cheesemeisters, when we will be discussing season 3, episode 8, the backstory. But before that, join us here on Friday when we're going to dive even deeper into the world of having a freshman buddy, because we're gonna watch Real Genius. 80 points higher than me, thinks a big guy like that can wear his clothes.
Okay,
love it, can't wait. You've never seen it. Val Kilmer in all of his 80s glory, just being a smartass, and it's very funny. So we'll see you here Friday for that, and next week we're gonna see what happens with the backstory, and we're gonna kick off a storyline that takes us through much of the year next week. Yep. Okay. And there's some, I mean, we've already, again, this is the nice thing, we've got some storylines that started earlier that we know are going to continue. Like this Kelly, Brenda, Dylan thing is not done, and you can feel it. Like when the episode ends on Kelly's sad face, you're like, we're not done with this yet.
I know.
And so like that story's in progress, and we started all these other stories today with new characters being introduced. But there's something happening next week. Something that someone gets next week that is going to be a problem.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. An STD. That would be nice. Yep. Just everybody. Oh, look who has the crabs.
Oh.
Yeah. By the way, that's something that happens later, which makes me happy.
Of course it does.
Who do you think? Wait a minute. All right, here we go. Prediction time on our way out the door. Which character gets crabs?
Steve.
Okay, we're gonna mark it down. This is for us to check out at the beginning of season 5.
Okay.
So,
not that long.
Well, no. Beginning of season 5, we're gonna find out who had crabs. But until then, Cheesemeisters.
Bye.
Bye.